Hi, and welcome to another edition of Jules Voto's Photo Focus. 13 reasons why digital SLR cameras are better than film. So let's get right into it. Number one, image quality, especially at high ISO. I can shoot with my Nikon D810 at 6400, even at 12,800, and get some pretty darn good images without much in the way of noise. If I did that with film, if I pushed Tri-X to high ISOs or even T-Max 3200, I'm going to see a lot of grain. And overall image quality. For example, with the D850, which is a 45 megapixel camera, it's going to give you more detail, sharper images with a good lens than you can get with film. So image quality is better with digital. All right, number two is long-term cost. Now, obviously, you could get into film photography very inexpensively. Cameras and lenses you could pick up fairly cheap. Digital camera, especially a new digital camera, is going to cost you a good deal more. But as far as the long-term cost, a roll of film, a roll of color, negative film, 36 exposure, is going to cost you around $15 to have that film processed. And for medium resolution scans, that's going to be approximately another $15. So we're looking at $30 for a 36 exposure roll. If you shoot 3,000 pictures, let's say, that's about 83 rolls of film. At $30 a roll, we're looking at $2,500 for 3,000 pictures. So on my Nikon D810, I have shot over 150,000 pictures since I've owned it. And if I were shooting film and shot that many pictures, well, let's say 100,000 pictures, keep it simple. We'll say 100,000 pictures. If I shot 100,000 pictures with film, we're looking at 2,777 rolls. And at $30 a roll to have that processed and scanned, we're talking $83,000. So if you take a lot of pictures, digital is the way to go. Number three, one of the really big advantages, I think, is you could change ISO picture to picture. Let's say you're shooting outdoors and it's a nice, bright, sunny day. You could set your ISO down to whatever the lowest is on your camera, whether it be 64 or 100 or even 200. Now you go indoors and you want to shoot some pictures by available light. Now you can bump that ISO to 800, 1600, 3200. If you were shooting film, yeah, you could have another camera with a higher speed film, or you have to take that roll out and put in another roll. So I think that's a big advantage of digital, is that you could change that ISO picture to picture. Number four, you could get hundreds, even thousands of images on one memory card. If you're shooting 35 millimeter film, 36 exposures per roll, that's the max. Let's say you were shooting action, shooting, let's say, with a Nikon F5 at 8 frames a second. You could burn through that 36 exposure roll in 4.5 seconds. So another big advantage to digital is the number of images stored on a memory card. Number five, dual card slots. Now, not all digital cameras, digital SLRs have dual card slots, but many do, and you have built-in backup. There's many ways to configure it, but one way is backup. So you could shoot to one card, the primary card, and it will back up to the second card as you shoot. So you have two copies of each image. Obviously, you can't do that with film. And of course, there's always the danger, although I have never had it happen to me in all the years I've been shooting film, which is over 50, a film could be lost in the mail if you're mailing it to the processor, or it could be damaged in processing. So another advantage to digital. Number 6 is the tilting LCD. Again, not all digital cameras, digital SLRs have a tilting LCD, and some of them have fully articulated LCDs. But just a plain old tilting LCD enables you, especially if you're a landscape photographer, to get down, put your camera on the ground, flip that screen up, and take some low angle shots. If you were using a film camera, you'd have to lay down on the ground if it had an eye level viewfinder. Now, some cameras have interchangeable, some film cameras have interchangeable finders, and you could always put a waist level finder on that would give you sort of the same thing as the tilting LCD. But I think that's another nice advantage of digital, the tilting LCD. Number 7, you could set white balance on a digital camera. If you're shooting outdoors, you could leave it set to auto white balance, or if it's a sunny day, set it for sun, or in the shade, whatever. You have multiple settings on a digital camera. Or you can do custom white balance if you're shooting indoors under mixed lighting. If you're shooting color film, that sometimes becomes a problem. If you're shooting indoors by available light and it's tungsten lighting, you may need to use a color compensation filter. Then if you go outdoors and shoot by daylight, you may forget to take that filter off. Or if you're shooting slide film, now you can buy a tungsten balanced slide film. But again, what happens if you go outdoors? You have to change film or use a different filter. So that now that slide film can be balanced for the daylight. So it's much easier with a digital camera when you could go from frame to frame and change your white balance. Okay, number 8, different image ratios. Some DSLR cameras, such as this Nikon D810, offers you the normal 3:2 image ratio, the same as 35mm film. But it also offers 5:4 image ratio, which scales right up to 8:10, and 1:1, which gives you a square image ratio. Many digital cameras have that 1:1 image ratio. So that's another nice feature of the digital camera. Number 9, higher frame rates with digital single lens reflex cameras than you can get with motorized 35mm cameras. And of course, with the 35mm camera, you're going to burn through that roll very quickly at their highest frame rates. Number 10 is picture controls, as Nikon calls them, or picture styles. So you could have different looks. Again, you could do it frame to frame. The way you could change ISO frame to frame, you could change picture styles or picture controls frame to frame. Some are portrait, some are for landscape, some are higher contrast, lower contrast, black and white. So there's many different picture styles or picture controls, so you could change the look of each image. Number 11 is you can see the results right after capture. Look on the back of the LCD and you can tell how your lighting was, how your exposure was, if eyes were closed, if you're doing a portrait or group photo, for example. So I think that's another huge advantage. You also have a histogram that you can see that will help you to determine if your exposure was good. There's blinking highlights in some cases, so you're not overexposing the bright areas. So that's a huge advantage. With film, you don't see the results until the film is processed. Now, studio photographers years ago, in fact, when I had a studio, I would shoot, if I set up a new lighting setup, I would shoot a Polaroid when I was shooting medium format to see the effect of my lights and exposure. But with digital, you can see the results right after capture on the back of the LCD. Number 12 is image data is stored with each image. So every time you take a picture, all the data, all the camera settings are recorded along with that image. And you can view that on the back of the LCD, but you also have it with you when you bring that image into your computer. So you could see what your f-stop was, your shutter speed, whether flash was used or not, what your picture control or style was. All those things are recorded and you have easy access to it with your computer. So if you're testing a lens or testing a setup or testing a camera, if you're just starting out and you want to see what your settings were for each image, it's very easy to do. With film, you'd have to write it all down. Frame number 1, f8 at a 500th of a second, and so forth and so on. You have to write all that information down. With digital, it's right there for you, stored within each image. And finally, number 13, you can go right from the camera to the computer, either by connecting the camera to the computer with a USB cable or taking your memory card out of the camera and plugging it into a card reader on the computer. So very quick to get those images. And you can even transmit those images via Bluetooth to your phone, or you can even tether your camera to the computer. Let's say you're shooting in a studio. You can tether the camera to the computer so that those images immediately go to the computer, and also you can see them right on the screen even before capture. So another great advantage of digital. Now, if there's anything I missed, if there's some advantages that you can see of digital SLRs over film, please leave them in the comments below. Now, my next video will be along the same lines as this, is 11 advantages, 11 reasons why mirrorless cameras are better than digital SLRs. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I come out with a new video every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. So thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next time.